Good chefs know you eat with your eyes first, so why not make sure the chef looks like $1 million too? These celebrity chefs went through some seriously impressive transformations.
With Good Eats, Alton Brown redefined the look and feel of food shows. Since he first debuted on the Food Network, however, much has changed about him. Here's how Alton Brown's transformation over the years has been causing a stir. Alton Brown was born to Alton Sr. and Phyllis Brown in Los Angeles on July 30th, 1962. While Brown slowly learned his first words and took his first steps in a house surrounded by apricot and lemon trees in North Hollywood, around him the society changed at a lightning speed. California in the 1960s was all about music-loving hippies and suntan surfers. Brown's parents, both Georgia natives, had liked what the city had to offer, so much so that what was supposed to have been their brief honeymoon there was extended to 14 years. Brown's dad always wanted to own a radio station, and when an opportunity presented itself to own one in Cleveland, Georgia, the family packed their bags and moved to a town that had little in common with the dreamy West Coast vibe. It was tough on little Brown, who told the Wall Street Journal, "I was 7, and Georgia came as a shock. Some of the kids didn't wear shoes to school, and I got beat up a lot because I couldn't keep my mouth shut." Being the new kid on the block wasn't easy for Brown. However, he was able to find solace in music. Brown told the Wall Street Journal, "Because my dad owned a radio station, he'd bring home promotional copies of albums. When he gave me the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper, I didn't leave my room for 6 months." Brown, who had learned how to play the piano when he was just 5, also took up the saxophone at the age of 10. He later noted how playing the saxophone got him through a rough period during his early adolescence. However, things did not get much better in high school for Brown. In an interview with Bitter Southerner, he compared his school to a, quote, internment camp. Brown told the outlet, "I was saved by the fact that I got very into jazz music, and there was a jazz band there, so I kind of lived in that world." If anyone should get the credit for Brown being the Brown as we know him today, it should probably be musicians like Miles Davis, whom Brown noted as an early influence. As he progressed from high school to college, music followed. He learned how to play guitar there and frequented live music shows while still a student. While most kids graduate from high school at the age of 18, Brown was out by the age of 16. Brown later said that leaving high school early was, quote, not a good thing. He would later tell Bitter Southerner, "I was way too young, so I wasted a couple of years." He wanted to pursue his passion for music full-time, but ultimately decided to go to college to study business. Brown, however, knew he was not cut out for it. He instead steered towards an entirely new field, theater. It just so happened that the college he went to study business at had a state-of-the-art theater complex. Brown told the Television Academy Foundation, "So, my first day at college, I decided to go and try out for a play. And I tried out for a play, and I got a part in a play. And after that, I never turned back. So I ended up with a theater degree." Theater organically led to an interest in filmmaking, which came with its own challenges, as his college lacked a film program. Brown, seeking more film experiences, eventually transferred to the University of Georgia. Brown never graduated from the University of Georgia. He was one foreign language credit short of earning his degree. Upon leaving college, Brown got involved in video production. His stint as a camera operator for REM's 1986 music video for The One I Love proved to be a turning point. After the REM project, opportunities poured in. Around this time, Brown also got into watching food shows. The shows, however, sorely disappointed him. Meanwhile, Brown also realized that he loved cooking, and over time, his love of cooking turned into a serious hobby. Before long, Brown started thinking about making his own cooking show. He told the Television Academy Foundation, "That is the seed that got planted that became Good Eats eventually." Alton Brown frequently spoke about the idea of a food show that mixed science and entertainment to his then-wife, Deanna. While everyone thought he was crazy for thinking there would be a market for such a food show, Deanna had faith in his nascent idea. Upon her insistence, and with her financial support, Brown joined the New England Culinary Institute in Vermont. After graduating, he presented the scripts for 2 pilots to a company that made commercials. They agreed to produce it on the condition that Brown host, while someone else directed. This was a major plan change for Brown, who was of the idea that he would direct and have someone else host. He accepted the conditions, though, and got working in the fall of 1997.
I decided to start at Culinary Ground Zero. Stake your claim, and this spud's for you. One show about steak, one show about potatoes.
When the episodes were out, it didn't create the stir that Brown expected. Then, a big break arrived. A programming executive at Food Network happened to stumble upon snippets of his cooking show that had been uploaded online. And in less than 4 months, Brown was working on the first episode of Good Eats for the Food Network. He had no clue that he would be making 248 more. 2 years after Good Eats premiered in 1999, Brown got an offer to host Iron Chef America. Brown was very familiar with the concept of the show as he had watched the original Japanese Iron Chef when it was broadcast on a San Francisco television station. For Brown, who sometimes took a whole day to get one shot for Good Eats, Iron Chef was a whole new experience. He was shooting 2 episodes a day, but just as with Good Eats, Iron Chef had him roll up his sleeves and meticulously study the ingredients that the chefs brought with them in the show. He even made PowerPoint presentations of all the ingredients that every chef used. Brown told the Television Academy Foundation, "The goal for me was never to be surprised by an ingredient, ever." It must have worked, as Brown continued to host Iron Chef America for another 11 years. In Brown's opinion, Good Eats served its purpose in expanding the scope of a food show after its original 15 seasons. But at the end of the show's 13th year, he called it quits. Brown told Fast Company, "Quite frankly, as a filmmaker, I was getting bored, so I wanted to wait for technological changes. I wanted to see how the food landscape changed. I wanted to see how the media landscape changed." As soon as he quit Good Eats, Brown busied himself with a ton of other projects, including a podcast and playing mentor in the Food Network Star series. Yet another reason Brown quit making Good Eats was that he felt a new wave of food shows was sweeping through Food Network, a wave that would probably annihilate old shows such as his own. Brown jumped on the bandwagon and began hosting a culinary game show called Cutthroat Kitchen. The idea for the show, which centered on bizarre challenges for the contestants as they tried to make it to the final round, came from Brown's stint with the next Iron Chef. After doing 200 episodes over a span of 4 years, Brown hit a saturation level with hosting game shows. He conveyed this to his followers on Facebook, saying, "I've had enough, guys. I need to get back to what I do." Later, Brown confirmed the end of the series on Twitter. In the afterglow of the success of Good Eats, Brown came up with a live show based on the series, including sock puppets, history, humor, and fast-paced dialogue, reminiscent of a Good Eats episode. The live tour kicked off in 2013 and gave Brown an opportunity to go back to playing guitar, which was something that he hadn't done for a long time. He'd previously done other non-music live shows, though some of those appearances were deeply controversial. The response was great, with 144 shows in 120 cities. Bitten by the live tour bug, Brown created another variety show called Eat Your Science in 2016.
Alton Brown Live, Eat Your Science. New puppets, songs, and potentially dangerous culinary demonstrations.
That fall, Brown got an opportunity to perform on Broadway. For Brown, who had quit business studies to pursue theater in college, performing on Broadway was his answer to those who told him that earning a theater degree was stupid. Alton Brown's first wife, Deanna, was instrumental in getting Brown to where he is today. Deanna, whom Brown knew from his days creating TV commercials, was the one who put him through culinary school, pushed him to write scripts for Good Eats, and even came up with the name for the series. Despite pulling through several challenges together, the couple divorced in 2015. Brown told People, "We changed. The world changed, and she went one way and I went the other way. I think we're probably both a heck of a lot better off where we are." After the divorce, Brown gained 20 pounds, blaming excessive drinking and peanut M&Ms. But he soon picked himself up, lost the extra weight, and even got a designer to renovate the industrial loft he moved into after leaving Deanna. Elizabeth Ingram, the interior designer, and Brown hit it off and were engaged a year after the renovation was finished. Alton Brown's days after Good Eats included numerous experiences that pulled him far away from his identity as a cook. Hosting a game show and strumming the guitar in front of a packed audience felt good while it lasted, but soon led to a bit of an identity crisis. Brown told Fast Company, "I think I was starting to feel kind of lost. So I thought, well, what I need to do is look at the food that I actually cook on a day-to-day basis." This led to his 8th book, Everyday Cook. The book is simply a peek into Brown's way of cooking, with no fictional characters, no puppets, and no mind-boggling camera angles. Instead, Brown presented his most authentic self. Brown told Fast Company, "Everyday Cook is just me personally sharing my food, and it's a statement of who I am." The book includes recipes that Brown makes and eats on a regular basis, and a list of his favorite pantry items and kitchen tools.
The jovial TV host we all know isn't always what Andrew Zimmern has been like, from chef to critic to host, battling addiction along the way. Born in 1961, Zimmern was raised in New York City. As he told Artful Living, "It was a privileged surrounding by most conventional standards. My parents were divorced but were best friends. But that changed very quickly when Zimmern was just 13 years old. An accident during surgery left his mother Karen in a coma for months. She survived but suffered severe brain damage. The shock and the intensity of her recovery affected Zimmern for years to come," he told the outlet. "It was an extremely traumatic event in my life, one that has affected me greatly up until even a couple of years ago, when I started doing some serious trauma-related work. That emotional damage became the catalyst for his early addiction. As a teen, he began using alcohol and drugs to cope. By the time he managed to graduate from college, he was stealing to support his addiction," he told CNN. "I lost an apartment, I became homeless for 11 months and squatted in a building. I was crossing lines that I never thought I would cross before." He once spent days trying to drink himself to death. Zimmern made a phone call to a friend that he says saved his life. Zimmern immediately boarded a plane for the Betty Ford Center in Minnesota. He now shares his story at speaking events and supports causes like Giving Kitchen, a nonprofit providing recovery resources for those struggling with addiction in the food industry.
Now, my story is my greatest asset.
While addiction initially prevented him from achieving stability and success until he got sober, Zimmern had his heart set on a career in the food industry for years. He can even point to a specific moment where he knew it was his dream. It was a fateful meal that he ate during a ski trip with his father in the French Alps, at Pas Bocuse. The renowned eatery maintained a 3-star Michelin rating for over 55 years, according to the BBC, and its French cuisine has enchanted patrons for decades. Of course, Zimmern was no exception. According to First We Feast, he recalled that the meal was so incredibly good that he became, quote, "overwhelmed with the possibilities of food." While Zimmern has spoken of being an adventurous eater even as a kid, he made it clear that this one meal has made the strongest impression. He told Food and Wine, "That dinner, I knew for sure I was going to be in the food business for my life. I always suspected, but at that moment, I knew there was no turning back." Although we're now used to seeing Zimmern travel around the world with cameras catching his every move, he actually spent the first several years of his career behind the scenes. According to his website, after completing his rehab stint, Zimmern looked for work in the culinary field. He started as a busboy at Minnesota's former Café Un Deux Trois, eventually rising through the ranks over the course of 6 years to become executive chef. That beefed up his resume enough to land him a gig as Minneapolis St. Paul Magazine's dining and restaurant critic.
Food you're embarrassed to say you enjoy.
Gas station pizza, although I'm not embarrassed, I say it all the time. It is my guilty pleasure.
Even though he's since moved on and become a high-profile TV host, he hasn't lost that critical slant. He once told Forbes, "There's a difference between popular and good. I don't believe in a lot of the giant crowdsourcing apps, Yelp being the most famous one." Instead, he recommends skipping the apps and tracking down well-respected local food writers and influencers so you can check out their solid recommendations. Successful as he may be today, Zimmern's professional journey was not without its missteps. One past blunder rocked him so hard that he abandoned any dream of becoming a full-time chef. He recalled an early memory when he helped open a local restaurant called Backstage at Bravo, and it didn't go well. He explained to Minneapolis Twin City Business, "I realized I couldn't implement the partner's vision. I kept trying to change myself to get along, but I eventually realized being in business for other people wasn't for me." Zimmern not only walked away from the restaurant, but he took a different industry path altogether. He soon pivoted to hosting food segments on local cable stations, and while he's enjoyed great success at it ever since, Zimmern has remained unlucky when it comes to opening restaurants. The Minneapolis eatery he debuted in 2018, Lucky Cricket, temporarily closed just a year after opening. According to Eater Twin Cities, Lucky Cricket reopened under new management several months later, but then shuttered its doors again in 2020 during the pandemic. At the beginning of his hosting career, Zimmern worked steadily in local media but just couldn't make the jump to the national level. But things were about to change. Zimmern and a small team made a TV pilot for a show they dubbed Food Freaks, and it caught the attention of a local production company. Changing the name to Bizarre Foods, the company reshot a new pilot that saw Zimmern devouring elk testicles on camera. They took the eye-popping segment to the Travel Channel, which promptly ordered 6 episodes.
Nice, isn't it?
It's not nice.
No? But it will be nice.
That's year-old rotted fish.
From the moment Bizarre Foods hit the air in 2006, Zimmern's life was transformed. According to the Star Tribune, his star-making break happened shortly after an episode where Zimmern received an exorcism by an Ecuadorian man who stripped him down, spit moonshine and fire at him, and rubbed him with a guinea pig. Jay Leno then picked up the phone and tapped Zimmern for The Tonight Show. And as Zimmern recalled, quote, "We were off to the races." Fame came quickly for Zimmern, but more prestigious recognition took a little longer to achieve. In 2010, however, he finally received one of the food industry's highest honors, a James Beard Award for TV food personality, and he has since received 3 more of the awards. Bizarre Foods won Best Television Program on Location in 2012, and in 2013 and 2017, he won again for TV food personality.
The foundation is food. The foundation is the change in all of us that we can make in this world.
Not only does Zimmern clearly deserve the high honors, he's also been known to get emotional at the ceremony. While delivering his 2017 acceptance speech, he was reportedly moved to tears, stating, "What I really wanted to do was make a show about people and tell stories about the things that brought us together rather than the things that divided us." Other accolades included 2 Cable Fax Awards for Bizarre Foods and a 2020 Daytime Emmy Award for the Zimmern List. People who eat for a living undoubtedly have a tougher time watching their weight, but even when he's off duty, Zimmern has copped to some poor eating habits. In 2017, he told people that it wouldn't be unusual for him to eat last night's leftovers, like a pot roast with white bread for breakfast. Another way he often started his day was with a far less nutritious meal, a double espresso and a few cigarettes.
This morning for breakfast, I had 2 slices of brisket with a little bit of gravy on a piece of sourdough toast.
He not only vowed to kick bad eating to the curb, but he also warned against regularly chowing down on typical American breakfasts like pancakes, bacon, and eggs. Zimmern explained that indulging like that for a period of several years was so bad for his health that it nearly cost him his life. Taking the health scare seriously, it appears that he has since turned things around. A year later, he was showing off the healthy vegetarian plate from a local Mediterranean restaurant on Instagram. In 2018, Zimmern stirred up some major controversy. Prior to opening his Asian restaurant Lucky Cricket in a suburb of St. Paul, Zimmern readily put his own foot in his mouth. While slamming chain staple P.F. Chang's, he told Fast Company,
"I think I'm saving the souls of all the people from having to dine at these poor restaurants masquerading as Chinese food that are in the Midwest."
The backlash from the Chinese American community was swift, and Deadline reported that Zimmern was handily torn apart by both the media and the general public. He apologized, posting in a lengthy statement to Facebook, "The upset that is felt in the Chinese American community is understandable, and I regret that I have been the one to cause it. I feel terrible that in my remarks, I came across as arrogant and patronizing because it's simply not who I am." Zimmern has since gone on to note the changes he's made in regard to public comments. As he told Minneapolis St. Paul, "The rules for me are, is it true? Does it need to be said? And if it's true and needs to be said, is it up to me to say it?" In 2018, Zimmern revealed a major transition in his personal life. He and his wife Rashia, who share a teenage son Noah, would be divorcing. Zimmern took full responsibility for his part in their split, saying that he paid too much attention to his work and not enough to his family. He explained to the New York Times, "I wasn't there for my wife and I wasn't there for my son. My wife gave me 1,000 chances to make it right." As he told it, the strain that his travel schedule put on his relationships was a problem he had in common with the late Anthony Bourdain, who had been a close friend. Although it was too late to save his marriage, Zimmern vowed to make improvements to his relationship with his ex-wife and their son. But it appears Zimmern has since found happiness in a new relationship. In 2021, Artful Living noted his new partner, Lissa Visser, and it looks like Zimmern has indeed stepped up his role as a father. On National Sons Day, he posted several photos of Noah, writing, "No one has taught me more about patience, tolerance, and understanding than this kid." Celeb chef Guy Fieri is a man whose life journey went from Midwestern pretzel carts to dozens of restaurants, millions of dollars, and countless hours of airtime. Let's take a look back at Guy Fieri's head-turning transformation. Guy Fieri was born in Columbus, Ohio in 1968, but when he came into this world, the name Fieri was not listed on his birth certificate. Instead, it was Fieri, which was his family's surname. Fast forward to the 1990s, long before he became famous, when Fieri changed his last name. It turns out Fieri was the actual name of his grandfather when he left Italy and immigrated to America. The chef changed his name in order to honor his family. As for his childhood, Fieri didn't spend much time in Ohio. His family moved to Northern California shortly after he was born. Nevertheless, his hometown has not forgotten their native son. In 2020, thousands of people signed a Change.org petition to rename Columbus to Flavortown, one of Fieri's trademark catchphrases. As of June 2021, the petition had more than 130,000 signatures. Unfortunately for now, you still won't find Flavortown on the map. Guy Fieri didn't waste much time getting into the food service business. At the ripe old age of 10, he opened his own pretzel stand. How did this entrepreneurial venture come about? According to Fieri, it all started during a family ski trip. After a day on the slopes, Fieri told Today that he came home and raved to his dad about the delicious soft pretzel he had for lunch. By the end of the trip, Fieri's father suggested that his son should start his own pretzel business. Young Fieri went back to the vendor, waited until the pretzel seller threw out his box of goods, then went dumpster diving in order to retrieve the address of the pretzel manufacturer. Equipped with a stash of soft pretzels and a homemade pretzel cart built by himself and his dad, Fieri started selling pretzels in the 5th grade. And he didn't stop until he was a sophomore in high school. Fieri used his pretzel money to help fund a year living abroad in France. It was there that Fieri truly fell in love with food and never looked back. Fieri recalled on the Moment podcast, "The click went off and I said, that's it, I'm a food person. That's what I want to be. I want to own my own restaurant." After being fully dazzled by the culinary scene in France, Guy Fieri's future was set. From there, he quickly went to work learning everything there is to know about the restaurant business. Fieri enrolled at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas to study hospitality management. During this time, he worked several different restaurant jobs, including flambe captain. After graduating, Fieri climbed his way up the career ladder with a stint at a Stouffer's restaurant before being named district manager for Louise's Trattoria. Fieri's career took a big step forward in 1996 when he and his business partner Steve Gruber opened their own restaurant. Johnny Garlic's was an Italian eatery located in Santa Rosa, California. Although Fieri had yet to turn 30 years old, he clearly knew what he was doing. Johnny Garlic's proved to be such a success that the pair opened 2 more locations. Before he even knew it, Fieri's culinary career was off and running. You wouldn't be out of line thinking Guy Fieri has been on television forever. In fact, it's difficult to remember the culinary television landscape prior to the mayor of Flavortown's arrival. But every great character has an origin story. And for Fieri, it all started by winning a competition show on the network that would become his home for many, many years. In 2006, Fieri was crowned champion of Food Network's Next Food Network Star. What was the prize for winning the competition? His own show on Food Network, of course. Guy's Big Bite premiered later that year. But all this almost never happened. On the Moment podcast, Fieri explained that it was his buddies who pushed him to audition, so he finally gave in and sent in a tape. When the network watched the audition, their first words were, according to Fieri, "Call him. Get him on the phone now." The rest is television history, as Fieri has been a mainstay on Food Network ever since. Thankfully, that won't be changing anytime soon. Throughout Guy Fieri's climb to fame and his many years in the spotlight, he's been accompanied by his wife of nearly 30 years, Lori Fieri. By all accounts, they have a healthy, loving relationship, which makes it seem like they were destined to be together. But that's not how it appeared when they first met. It turns out Guy and Lori met under some uncomfortable circumstances. The chef was running a restaurant in California when, one day, a recently fired employee walked in with her friend. Fieri told Delish, "They weren't supposed to be there. I was talking to Lori's friend and saying, 'Hey, listen, wait a few weeks before you come in.' And standing behind her is this blue-eyed blonde girl giving me this mean mug." Coming to her friend's defense, Lori refused to leave. Guy acquiesced, and the rest is history. Lori, a Rhode Island native, was in town as part of her cross-country move to Southern California. Fieri later joked, "She never made it to San Diego." Kidding aside, the television host gives his better half a great deal of credit for accompanying him on his crazy life journey. Fieri told The Moment, "To get here, you have to be willing to adapt and understand. It's all compromise and understanding. I knew as soon as I saw her. I just knew." Guy Fieri's look is as bold as his flavors, and that includes his platinum blonde spiked hair. In fact, Fieri's locks may just be what he is most known for. But believe it or not, his hairstyle was not pre-planned. Instead, it was a spur-of-the-moment choice by his friend and hairdresser, Christina Jones. Fieri told People, "I was just kind of having one of those moods one day and said, just do whatever you want. I get done and I'm like, you gonna wash that out? That shampoo?" She goes, "No, that's your hair color." I'm like, "My what?" While Fieri wasn't happy with the look, he had to get to work, so he donned a hat and went about his evening. While the new hairdo has become Fieri's signature look, not everyone is crazy about it. Fieri's wife Lori told the magazine, "I always say, when are you going to change your haircut? But it's stuck and it's him. I tease him every once in a while." She added that sometimes she wishes he would change his hairstyle and compared it to dyeing her hair black, which is something she wouldn't do for her husband. For as much of a television star as Guy Fieri is, his TV shows are just one component of his culinary empire, which includes a number of business lines. First are his restaurants. Since opening his first eatery in 1996, Fieri has built a portfolio of dozens of restaurants. Some of his notable restaurants include Guy Fieri's American Kitchen and Bar, Guy Fieri's Smokehouse, El Burro Borracho, and Guy's Pig and Anchor Barbecue. But that's not all Fieri has been working on. He's also published 6 different books since 2008. 3 of them are based off of his popular Food Network show, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, while the remaining 3 are original cookbooks. If that wasn't enough, Fieri also has his own line of barbecue sauces and salsas, and his Flavortown food line, which includes frozen and refrigerated products. Since winning the Next Food Network Star Competition show in 2006, Guy Fieri has hosted more shows on the channel than one can count. A short list includes Guy's Ranch Kitchen, Guy's Family Road Trip, and Guy's Grocery Games. Fieri's most successful series, however, has been Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. The show follows Fieri as he travels around the country, sampling dishes from popular local restaurants. It has aired more than 500 episodes and is still going strong. But Fieri also branched out from his home network and The Kitchen when he hosted 2 seasons of NBC's game show Minute to Win It. And that's not all. The chef has branched out into even more shows on other networks, including Rachel Ray, Jay Leno's Garage, and Shark Week, to name a few. Just turn on your television, and Fieri is never more than a few channels away.
Hello!
For someone who has been on television as much as Guy Fieri, it's only right to have his place in entertainment cemented. Literally. That occurred in 2019, when the TV personality got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In doing so, Guy became just the 3rd chef to be bestowed the honor, joining Bobby Flay and Wolfgang Puck. The ceremony featured a speech from Guy's oldest son, Hunter Fieri, who referred to his father as,
"You're my best friend, you're my mentor, and my idol, and I cannot be more proud of you."
Also on hand was Matthew McConaughey, who, as it turns out, is one of the celeb chef's longtime friends. During his acceptance speech, Guy made sure to give credit for his success to the friends and people around him, and of course, the residents of Flavortown. The coronavirus pandemic took a dire toll on nearly every industry, but few have suffered as much as restaurants and their employees. And while countless individuals have pitched in to provide assistance, few, if any, have done as much as Guy Fieri. On March 27, 2020, Fieri partnered with the National Restaurant Association to start the Restaurant Employee Relief Fund to provide financial assistance for food service workers in need. The well-connected chef began by reaching out to his sponsors, telling CBS News, "I started sending out personal video messages to all the CEOs that had any connection to the Restaurant Association. Pepsi, Coke, Cargill, Keurig, Dr. Pepper, you name it. The next morning we have a conference call, and they said, Pepsi just sent us $1 million. Aided by additional donations from more than 50 companies and organizations and 15,000 individuals, the Restaurant Emergency Relief Fund raised a staggering $21.5 million in just a few short weeks. The fund, which provides restaurant workers with one-time $500 grants, has helped more than 43,000 employees. With his platinum blonde, spiky hair, outrageous fashion choices, and lowbrow catchphrases, it's easy to dismiss Guy Fieri as not much more than a goofball.
And look, I get it. I don't want to hang out with Guy Fieri either, okay? I know he looks like a Hot Topic manager moonlighting at a Fridays.
But for all his silliness, you'll be hard-pressed to find an individual who has done more to support their community and other charitable efforts. Fieri's work to help food workers during the coronavirus pandemic is well documented, but his philanthropic work started long before 2020. A short list of his notable generosity includes founding Cooking with Kids, which funds programs that teach kids to cook, raising money for intellectually disabled children, and in honor of his late sister who was a lesbian, serving as an officiant for the nuptials of 101 same-sex couples at a massive wedding ceremony. One of Fieri's most notable ongoing charitable deeds began more recently. In 2017, as wildfires ravaged Northern California, Fieri and his team created a makeshift barbecue mess hall to feed roughly 5,000 evacuees, first responders, and military personnel per day. The following year, he was at it again, teaming up with Chef Jose Andres' World Central Kitchen to provide 2,000 meals. And in 2020, Fieri stepped up once more, cooking up 2,000 meals of penne pasta, salad, and garlic bread to first responders battling wildfires.
Few chefs can boast a cooking empire quite like British culinary superstar Jamie Oliver, but his journey has certainly had its ups and downs, and he's definitely transformed quite a bit since his early days. Here's what's happened to Jamie Oliver over the years. Oliver's background often surprises his fans. In an interview for Flow, the chef explained his humble beginnings, saying, "I grew up a real country boy in the county of Essex, about 18 miles from Cambridge." He went on to explain that his parents were solidly working class, even though people often thought otherwise. He said, "I have no idea why all these people I met later with my food show, The Naked Chef on TV, thought I was some privileged rich kid who went to a private school." His working class background wasn't always easy. Oliver explained to Flo that he helped out in his parents' pub from the age of 5. However, this taught him something important: having a good work ethic. As he put it, "My parents taught me how to treat others with respect and friendliness, and how to stay polite even when you're stressed and your feet are killing you. If you want to get anywhere, you have to roll up your sleeves and get on with it." Even though Oliver showed plenty of promise in the kitchen, he wasn't quite so prolific in the classroom. In fact, as he revealed in the 2019 documentary, Oliver, the Naked Chef Bears All, his dyslexia made his time in school extra difficult. As a result, he was actually at the bottom of his class. He confessed, "I left school resenting education so much, I felt angry towards the concept of revision." It's clear that Oliver had skills, even if they weren't necessarily academic. In fact, when he went to culinary college after graduating high school, he quickly shot to the top of his class. Oliver recalled, "It was such a relief to start getting good marks." Unlike some other multi-million-dollar TV stars, Oliver doesn't have a scandalous dating history. In fact, he settled down with his childhood sweetheart. As his wife Jules explained to Made by Mamas, the pair met when they were still teenagers. She admitted, "When I first met him, he was a drummer, and that's what got me. Rockstar image, you know. He was quite popular, so I thought, I want a piece of that, and he was very cool, and the man about town." Apparently, they've been going strong ever since. Sounds like Jules and Oliver were smitten from day one. In 2019, Oliver shared a throwback image of his wife on Instagram for her 45th birthday. He wrote, "She's a wonderful, kind, extraordinary person who I'm so proud to call my wife, and she's still smoking." It turns out Oliver was never aiming for a career in television. As he revealed in Oliver the Naked Chef Bears All, his first TV appearance was basically an accident. It all happened when the BBC decided to film in a restaurant where Oliver happened to work. Apparently, Oliver wasn't even working on the day of filming. He explained, "I remember because me and Jules hadn't had a night off together in so long. When he was called into the restaurant to work last minute, he almost didn't go in. But Oliver's famous work ethic prevailed." He added, "But my dad had always taught me to treat other people's business like our own family business, so the only answer was yes." When he arrived at the restaurant, he had his first taste of working with food for the camera, and audiences at home saw him for the first time. The special aired in 1997, and as Oliver's parents recalled, all of their friends spotted him on TV. After his fluke appearance cooking on the BBC, Oliver is quickly offered a more permanent TV role. By 1999, he'd been given his very own cooking show, The Naked Chef. As one interview from The Guardian recalled, he was an incredibly likable, easygoing guy in those days. The interviewer claimed he was also unaffected by his newfound fame and added, "His whole shtick was that he was truly impossible to dislike. There was no front to him, no armor."
When I started, cooking was for girls. And then a few years later, we managed to convince everyone that cooking got you girls. And that was the kind of turning point.
Despite Oliver's easygoing nature, it's clear that big things were coming for the young TV star. The same year the show debuted, he also released a cookbook, which quickly became a bestseller. He was even invited to cook for Tony Blair, the UK's Prime Minister at the time, according to the New York Times. There's no doubt about it, 1999 was a huge turning point in the young chef's career. Television wasn't the only thing on Oliver's mind in the early days of his career. He also wanted to continue working in restaurants. So in 2002, at the age of 27, he opened his very own restaurant, 15. As You magazine reported, this first restaurant was designed to bring quality food to mid-market diners. It seems that opening a restaurant was a real dream come true for Oliver, much more than being on TV. As he told The Guardian a few years later, "When I was 14, I thought I'd like to run a pub in an Essex village." His first restaurant soon expanded to a restaurant chain of eateries called Jamie's Italian. By 2009, the chain had made plans to expand to Asia. Over the years, he opened 25 restaurants in the UK. In the chain's early days, things seemed to be going well. As Oliver told The Londonist, "Everyone who's visited Jamie's Italian has wanted to come back again and again." Even though Oliver's career was definitely only getting better and better, it turns out the pressure was actually becoming a little too much for the young star. In 2010, he opened up to Radio 5 about the pressures of public life and constant filming. Apparently, his busy schedule meant that he became a, quote, weekend dad, leaving his wife to care for their kids. According to The Telegraph, Oliver had previously said that he planned on quitting public life by 2008. However, his fame grew and he kept on working. As he revealed in the interview, Oliver's marriage was definitely suffering as a result of his fame. He admitted, "There's a natural sort of tempo to having a relationship, and it's not brilliant all the time, but it goes through lovely cycles." One of Oliver's most enduring legacies is his work as a campaigner. As The Guardian explained, the chef set about on a dedicated campaign to improve school lunches, teach kids about cooking, and end childhood obesity. Most of his campaigns took the form of TV documentaries, and as the chef confessed, it wasn't always easy work. He admitted, "I hate making TV documentaries because it takes quite a lot of energy to know that you're going to get your arse kicked and people will hate you or fight you for large proportions of time." He went on to explain that his famous show, School Dinners, resulted in about a year and a half of abuse. As Oliver summed it up, "I don't particularly enjoy doing the stuff I'm most proud of." Oliver ended up also creating Jamie's Ministries of Food, a campaign of teachers and volunteers designed to, quote, get people cooking again and inspiring them to eat better and more nutritious food. As Oliver explained to Green Living, this campaign was all about childhood obesity. He said, food skills have been lost, and schools and families aren't teaching them, so our centers are doing that. While fame brought relationship problems for Oliver, it also brought other personal problems too. In his candid interview for The Guardian, the superstar chef confessed that fame had the bizarre effect of making him feel less understood. He said bluntly, "No one understands me. No one. My wife doesn't even understand me in terms of what I want to do." As Oliver explained, with fame came lots of press, and with press came a lot of assumptions about his motives. He went on to say, "Everyone thinks everything's about money." Oliver explained that most people seem to assume he did what he did for the monetary rewards. He seems to be well aware of how plenty of members of the public see him, but for him, the work was more about making a difference. He explained, "There's still lots of people who don't like me. You can tell that if you go on any blog. I annoy lots of people." When it comes to his personal life, Oliver has always been a dedicated family man. As he told The Guardian, family first, always, always. However, he has faced some criticism in the past for some of his parenting methods. He explained to Woman magazine, "My wife and I use an app to keep track of our kids' whereabouts." While some people may find this parenting method a little over the top, Oliver clarified that it was a system that really worked. He added, "If one of the girls says, 'I'm going to Camden Town,' and I can see they've gone to Reading, then we have a problem. They can check on me too and see how fast I'm driving. It's brilliant." In his Guardian interview, he also revealed that he and his wife followed the Gina Ford method. As he explained, "Gina's basically just a structured routine, and it's quite a lot to remember, but it does work. It's like communism." One thing about Oliver is crystal clear. He works incredibly hard. However, over the years, the famous chef has learned to slow down a little and pace himself.
I realised it was too much work.
As he explained to Balance in 2018, at the beginning of his career, Oliver used to struggle with getting enough sleep. He confessed, "I went through 6 years of about 3 hours sleep, just working too hard. However, eventually this lifestyle became too difficult to maintain." He added, "I went through a revelation, and over the last 8 years, have started spending time with sleep scientists." By 2018, he was getting around 6 hours of sleep a night, which in Oliver's words is on the cusp of acceptable. Things took a real nosedive for Oliver in 2019. In a shocking turn of events, the majority of his restaurants went into administration and were forced to close. For the TV chef, this sad ending to his restaurant empire was a huge blow. As he told You magazine, it was the toughest year of his life.
It's really eerie, and I don't like it.
Apparently, he was determined to save his restaurant group and even put in over $5 million of his personal savings. When the business finally collapsed, Oliver was heartbroken. He told the publication, "It is what it is, but I think that's been very physically, mentally, and financially tough. That was a tough one to swallow." When pressed about his emotions, the chef reportedly welled up. But for Oliver, this failure was just a temporary setback. The same year, he announced a new overseas restaurant chain in Asia.
Bobby Flay is one of the most popular celebrity chefs in America. So how did he go from playing around with an easy bake oven to Food Network stardom? Let's take a look back to see how Bobby Flay's transformation has seriously turned heads. It seems Bobby Flay was always destined to become a chef. When he was just 8 years old, Flay asked his parents for an easy bake oven for Christmas, and they delivered. Although he did become a world-famous chef, Flay did not ultimately follow a similar path to become a baker. Yet, Flay still clearly sees the importance of such a gift and thinks it should be made available to all kids without any stigma attached. In 2012, along with a host of other famous chefs, he came out to publicly support a teenager's online petition for Hasbro to make the Easy Bake Oven gender-neutral. This proposed change would include meaningful marketing moves, like putting boys on the box and making the toy in other colors besides pink and purple. Most people are likely unaware that Bobby Flay is a high school dropout, but it's true that he never officially finished school. After flunking out of several New York City schools, the future chef said goodbye to formal education at the ripe old age of 17. After dropping out, Flay's father forced him to get a job, so he began bussing tables at the famous Manhattan restaurant Joe Allen. The elder Flay had hoped the unglamorous gig would make his son want to return to school. It had the opposite effect. Flay quickly moved from busboy to kitchen helper to full-time chef, falling in love with all things cooking. In an interview with CBS Sunday Morning, Flay had this recollection about his early days at Joe Allen. 2 years later, Flay chose to further his culinary skills by attending the French Culinary Institute. He had shown so much talent in the kitchen that his boss, Joe Allen himself, paid his tuition. Flay graduated in 1984 and has never looked back. Bobby Flay may have honed his skills at culinary school, but it took real-life experience for him to develop what would prove to be his signature style. Following his graduation from the French Culinary Institute, Flay went to work for chef and restaurateur Jonathan Waxman at 2 of his establishments, Buds and Jams. As Flay told the Wall Street Journal, getting the job was simply a matter of networking. I was at a cocktail party at the French Culinary Institute. This woman, Gail Arnold, met me. She was the chef at Buds, and I said I would love to work there. And she said, okay. It was under Waxman's tutelage that Flay became enamored of his mentor's use and mastery of American Southwestern flavors. Flay was unfamiliar with the cuisine prior to that, but was quickly transfixed. As he said to the Wall Street Journal, that was the first time I had seen Southwestern ingredients, like blue cornmeal and chili peppers. I fell in love with the flavors, the colors, the textures. As it turns out, Flay's encounter with Southwestern flavors would be pretty fateful. It wouldn't be long before Flay was overseeing his own Southwestern restaurant at a tender age. In 1991, Bobby Flay ventured out on his own to open his first restaurant. Showcasing Flay's mastery of Southwestern flavors, the debut of Mesa Grill proved to be the launching point for the chef's meteoric rise. Just a year after opening its doors, New York Magazine awarded the Manhattan Eatery the Best Restaurant title. 1 year later, in 1993, Flay was named the prestigious James Beard Foundation's Rising Star Chef of the Year. Flay's success with Mesa Grill afforded him the opportunity to quickly open a second restaurant. Bolo, located in Manhattan's Flatiron district, debuted in 1993. It highlighted Spanish cuisine while using ingredients familiar to American diners. Like Mesa Grill, Bolo proved to be a popular and successful restaurant, even receiving a difficult-to-nab complimentary review from the New York Times. While both Mesa Grill and Bolo have since closed, they allowed Flay to showcase his skills and put him on the culinary map. Bobby Flay's culinary empire really started to take hold once the calendar flipped to the new century. In 2004, he opened a second Mesa Grill location. This one is located in the Caesars Palace Hotel in Las Vegas. Just 3 years later, he debuted a third Mesa Grill in the Bahamas. In between, Flay kept busy by trying his hand at a new restaurant concept. Bar Americain opened in New York in 2005, serving American classics in a bistro-style setting.
Bar Americain is really a celebration of lots of fantastic American ingredients and American dishes from all around the country.
The year 2008 saw Flay close the doors to Bolo in New York City. However, it also saw him begin what would prove to be a very successful new restaurant chain when the first Bobby's Burger Palace was opened on Long Island. Before the end of the year, Flay had already opened a second location. According to Bobby's Burger Palace, there are currently 10 of Flay's burger joints scattered around the United States.
Look what the food business has been able to do for my life. It's opened up so many doors and it's opened my eyes up to the world.
If you've turned on the Food Network more than once over the past 25+ years, it's likely you've seen Bobby Flay's face staring back at you. Flay first appeared on the channel in 1994. Since then, he has hosted so many shows on the network that it's difficult to keep count. His first, Grillin' and Chillin', debuted in 1996. Some of the highlights after that include Boy Meets Grill and Bobby Flay's Barbecue Addiction, both of which won Flay Daytime Emmy Awards. Flay is also no stranger to competition shows. He hosted Throwdown with Bobby Flay, which pits him against an expert chef in a specific cuisine. More recently, he's appeared as the title star in Beat Bobby Flay, where 2 up-and-coming chefs compete for the chance to cook against Flay to determine a winner. As many contestants have learned, it's pretty darn hard to beat Flay at his own game. Flay has also appeared on Food Network's Iron Chef America, which he's since quit, and Worst Cooks in America, just to name a few. While his skills in the kitchen made him a name to know within the culinary world, it's easy to say his dominance over the airwaves has made him a household name. While Bobby Flay's professional life has seen plenty of success, his personal life hasn't always enjoyed such smooth sailing. Most notably, his personal relationships have been a regular source of controversy, seeing as the chef has been married 3 times and divorced 3 times. Flay first got hitched to Deborah Ponzek, a fellow chef, in 1991. He was 26 at the time, and the marriage lasted just 2 years. Flay tried his luck in love again in 1995, this time to Kate Connolly. The two met when Flay appeared on Connolly's Food Network show, Robin Leach Talking Food. The marriage lasted slightly longer than Flay's previous one, for a total of 3 years. Flay's most recent and most noteworthy marriage was to actress Stephanie March. The two began dating in 2000, and in the winter of 2003, Flay proposed to March while ice skating at Rockefeller Center. The pair were married for 10 years before going their separate ways in 2015. But that's not where the story ends. As Page Six reported, Flay had reportedly been having an affair with his assistant for years prior to the split with March. Attempts at reconciliation between Flay and March failed, and the chef finally filed for divorce in 2015. If Bobby Flay's star status was still in doubt by 2015, he was awarded the opportunity to truly cement it. Pun intended. That year, the chef was honored with his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In doing so, Flay became the first chef to have his name engraved into the sidewalk of Hollywood Boulevard. Flay was joined at the ceremony by his mother and daughter, which likely only made the day's sideshow rather uncomfortable. The Hollywood Walk of Fame event was Flay's first public appearance since filing for divorce from his third wife, Stephanie March. Even more embarrassing was the fact that someone had hired a plane to fly a banner with the all-caps word cheetah emblazoned on it overhead during the ceremony. It is not uncommon for those who have spent as much time in the public eye as Bobby Flay has to have a public slip-up or two, but the chef has had more than his fair share of controversies. After filing for divorce from March, Flay also reportedly cancelled his ex's credit cards without warning. But there have been more issues with Flay than his messy personal life. In 2009, the Daily News reported that employees at Flay's restaurant had sued the celebrity chef for what they claimed were violations of employment law. In the lawsuit, employees from Mesa Grill, Bolo, and Bar American stated management withheld tips, forced them to work unpaid overtime hours, and failed to reimburse them for expenses. Flay and his business partners settled the suit by agreeing to pay the employees a combined $800,000. There have also been stories of bad behavior at his home away from home, the Food Network. Once, while competing on Iron Chef Japan, Flay jumped on the counter and cutting board in celebration, much to the chagrin of his opponent, Chef Masaharu Morimoto, who subsequently said that such behavior meant that Flay wasn't a true chef. To add insult to injury, Flay didn't even win the competition. Flay seems to have made about as many enemies as friends over the course of his career. For instance, the late Anthony Bourdain had these unflattering words for his fellow TV chef. "Beat Bobby Flay sounds promising, until you realize it's about cooking." Even a relative ally like Giada De Laurentiis hasn't always been so friendly. In recalling the time she met Flay on Iron Chef, De Laurentiis had this to say about her encounter. "I thought, Bobby Flay, you're a jerk. I never want to be around you again." These are just a few of the not-so-complimentary things some fellow famous chefs have said about Bobby Flay. It seems that more than a few people have found Flay's personality to be an off-putting combination of rude, arrogant, and egocentric. It's not just famous faces that have had issues with the chef. There have been accusations of him treating his employees poorly, and even Flay himself admitted that the Food Network hasn't always been happy about his antics. And while the internet may not always be the most trusted source, there are plenty of opinions on places like Quora to suggest that many of the general public do not find him overly charming. It's clear that Bobby Flay has been no stranger to failed marriages. However, the number of times he's headed to the altar does not mean those relationships weren't fruitful. In fact, his second marriage to Kate Connolly gave him his only child, Sophie Flay, who was born in 1996. Over the years, the youngest Flay has popped up on a few of her father's shows, including Brunch at Bobby's and as a judge on Beat Bobby Flay. While Sophie did not develop her father's devotion to the kitchen, she did inherit his affinity for the camera. After graduating from the communications school at the University of Southern California, Sophie landed a job as a community news reporter with ABC 7 Los Angeles, where she can often be seen on camera reporting on local events. Remarking on his daughter, the older Flay told People, "I have an ongoing flow of pride watching Sophie do so well in her career. She has this great work ethic. I'm watching her just rise to the challenges of being in her own career. I'm like, that's amazing. This is my kid."
Best known as the Sandwich King, Jeff Mauro has garnered quite the following since he won Season 7 of Food Network Star in 2011 and walked away with his own Food Network show. On his self-titled series, the Chicago chef is famous for recreating some of the most mouth-watering sandwiches across the country, from Philly cheesesteaks to crab cake sliders. But Mauro wasn't always the successful chef and TV personality that you know him as. His path to Food Network stardom took a lot of twists and turns, from originally pursuing acting in college to opening a chain of fast casual sandwich restaurants a few years ago. Yes, believe it or not, Jeff Mauro didn't always know he wanted to go into the food world. In fact, acting was his first love. Prior to competing on Food Network Star, Mauro graduated from Bradley University in Peoria, Illinois, where he studied radio and TV. In an interview with Spoon University, Mauro confessed, "I also loved performing. I was doing plays and comedies since 2nd grade. I went out to LA, and when I had no success getting into the business, I went to culinary school." According to his Food Network bio, Mauro opened up a deli right after college, which he ran by day. And by night, he satisfied his craving to be in the spotlight by performing as Tony in the immersive Chicago-based dinner theater play, Tony and Tina's Wedding. He then moved to Hollywood, where he tried for a few years to make his mark as an actor. When that didn't work out, he enrolled at Le Cordon Bleu to become a chef. In addition to being known for his delicious food, Mauro recently made headlines for something else, his 50-pound weight loss. In a Facebook post, Mauro showed off his slimmer body, saying, "Normally, I'm not this showy of my dad bod, but I am proud of my fitness journey and cannot thank my coaches enough for giving me a fitness home." How did he do it? Jeff Mauro has been very transparent about the process, stressing that it wasn't a quick fix or a crash diet, but rather hard work and dedication. According to the same Facebook post, which was originally shared by Mauro's CrossFit gym, O'Hare CrossFit in Chicago, the chef can credit his new physique to a combination of CrossFit workouts and a, quote, sensible, monitored diet. The caption adds that this healthy, sustainable method of losing weight is also what allowed Mauro to keep the weight off as well. While Mauro didn't share his exact diet, the Sandwich King has started posting pictures of salads alongside his sandwiches on social media. Unfortunately, though, those sandwiches aren't widely available for you to eat, though Mauro certainly tried. Back in 2016, Jeff Mauro opened Pork and Mindy's, a chain of fast casual restaurants named after the popular sitcom Mork and Mindy.
Until next week, nano.
The menu included protein-packed dishes like smoked meat sandwiches and even meat flights. Along with 4 locations in Chicago, Pork and Mindy's also had a line of barbecue sauces sold in grocery stores and even paired up with the Chicago Bears to sell candied bacon at the team's stadium in 2017. Mauro had plans to open about 30 locations by 2020, but unfortunately that didn't happen. Pork and Mindy's declared Chapter 7 bankruptcy in November 2019, shuttering all current locations according to Chicago Eater. The site reports that Mauro said the restaurant's expansion plans were too ambitious, saying they, quote, got out of control too quickly. Still, Jeff Mauro found a different way to bring his culinary genius to the masses by publishing his first cookbook in 2021. Titled Come On Over, the book includes 111 mouth-watering recipes, from sausage, egg, and cheese brunch sandwiches to cookie butter pie.
She's like, why 111? I go, because nobody else does it.
That's right, there's more than just sandwiches to be had. Mauro said he was influenced by both his Italian-American family and his mother-in-law's Southern roots. Mauro told Southern Living, "This book will help you with everything from just having your wife and son and daughter at the dinner table and creating great recipes to have, and finally having your extended family, to your friends, to your neighbors over."
Celebrity chef Tyler Florence is bold, brash, and confident. But when he steps outside of the kitchen for a reality show about the Special Forces, could that confidence be his downfall? Tyler Florence grew up with parents who both led hectic lives. As a result, he never spent much time in the kitchen as a kid. As a teenager, though, he realized that he would have to get a job if he wanted to save up money for things that he wanted, such as a car. He got a job as a dishwasher at one of the best restaurants in his hometown of Greenville, South Carolina. He got the job because his girlfriend's parents owned the restaurant. It was simply the first opportunity that presented itself to him. But fate came knocking. Working there, he realized that he simply loved being in the kitchen. Florence moved pretty quickly from his role as a dishwasher to working on the line. Describing his experience there, he told Williams-Sonoma, "It was the first thing I was ever really good at. At that moment, I knew I wanted to be a chef for the rest of my life."
To know that what you're doing for a living, working in hospitality, working in food, you will always have a job for the rest of your life.
As a result of his first restaurant experience, Florence decided that he wanted to go to culinary school. After graduating from high school, the budding chef enrolled at Johnson & Wales University's Charleston, South Carolina campus. Florence credits much of his success to his education. He believes that through his degree in hotel restaurant management, he was prepared for many of the situations his career would throw at him, especially creative and financial challenges. He graduated in 1994 and was awarded an honorary doctorate in 2004. Florence has also noted that some of the best advice he ever received came during his time at Johnson & Wales. He told Williams-Sonoma, "Chef Victor Sumero walked over to my station, picked up my knife, and felt the sharpness of the blade with his thumb. He laid it down, made eye contact with me, and said, 'Dull knife, dull chef.' I never forgot that, and my knives have been razor blades ever since." Tyler Florence once took the train from South Carolina to New York just to eat at the old location of Jean-Georges' restaurant, Jojo. He spent the entirety of his paycheck on that meal, and the chef described the moment as transformative in an interview with Northside San Francisco, saying, "That was a tipping moment. I came home with empty pockets, a matchbook, and ideas." After graduating from Johnson & Wales University, Florence packed his bags and moved to Brooklyn. His then boss, Louis Osteen, helped him land a job with Charlie Palmer at Oriole. Within a few years, he rose from Oriole and Mad 61, both on the Upper East Side, to River Cafe in Brooklyn. By the time he was 25, he had moved on to an executive chef position at Chibo in Midtown Manhattan. While Florence has described New York as one of the most challenging places for a young chef to work, he also believes that these challenges are crucial for success. Florence set high goals for himself. In 1998, he became the opening chef for Cafeteria, a Chelsea restaurant that famously appeared in several Sex and the City episodes. Around the same time, the Food Network, which was looking for on-air talent, took notice of Florence and hired him full-time in 1999. In 2021, Florence described the moment he got started at the Food Network as the first day of the rest of my life, and I just knew it. The chef got his start on television in 1999 when he started hosting the new Food Network show Food 911, helping chefs in need rescue their recipes. He then went on to take over hosting duties for the cooking show How to Boil Water. It was not all smooth sailing, however. Florence described the difficulties of being on television for the first time to Williams-Sonoma, saying, "It was a learning curve. There was a lot of experimentation. The main issue, according to Florence, is that many of his recipes were simply too complicated for home cooks to replicate. And days were long, because television production can shoot for 12 or more hours in a day. Eventually, however, Florence got the hang of it and realized that less is often more when it comes to sharing recipes on air. He said, "I had a lot of stamina and was willing to do just about anything for the shot." Florence has been on many television shows over the years, but one show he almost appeared on may come as a big surprise to his fans: The Bachelor. In an episode of his podcast, Two Dudes in a Kitchen, which he hosts with former Bachelorette contestant Wells Adams, Florence revealed that he turned down the coveted role of The Bachelor in the early 2000s. He was purportedly asked to star in the show, but the chef said no. According to Florence, this was around the time that he was named People's Sexiest Chef Alive. Florence explained that he chose not to do the show because of his son, who was only 4 years old at the time. He didn't think that his being on a dating show would be the right move for his career or the right example to set for his son. Still, Florence made sure to praise the Bachelor franchise, making it clear that turning down the show was a personal decision and nothing against the popular television program. While he may have been an eligible bachelor in the early 2000s, Tyler Florence is now a happily married man. Florence and his wife, Tolan, met at the Sundance Film Festival in 2004 and were married in December of 2006. At the time they met, Tolan was working for the acclaimed chef Rocco DiSpirito as a publicist, and DiSpirito introduced them. Tolan's family history is rather different from Tyler's. She grew up with a large family and many friends around her. The child of two parents who worked in the film industry, Tolan has worked as the executive producer of Ryan Seacrest's radio show, as well as working in marketing and relations for Wolfgang Puck and Rocco DiSpirito. Now, however, Tolan and Tyler live a fulfilling life in Mill Valley, California, with their 2 kids, running multiple businesses together. Tyler Florence travels often for his television show The Great Food Truck Race, which started as a cross-country road trip. Because of this, Florence spends a lot of time with his crew, who he views as part of his family. In an interview with People magazine, the chef said, "I've been doing it for over a decade, so we're all great friends. I clock out from reality and I go on this epic road trip with my friends, and we shoot a little TV on the way. That's the way we see it. It's just awesome." Sometimes, traveling for work becomes a family affair. The chef also said that when his youngest 2 kids are on vacation from school, they often travel with him on his work trips. Home may be where the heart is, but Florence always loves returning home from his work travels. He told People that the first thing he does when he returns home from a long trip is, quote, kiss my wife, for sure. While Florence may travel a lot for work, his roots are firmly planted with his family in Mill Valley, California. From this home base, Florence and his wife Tolan orchestrate a network of businesses. Florence's pride and joy is his restaurant, Wayfair Tavern. Over the years, he and his wife have also run a number of other restaurants and other endeavors, including El Paseo, an eatery he ran in partnership with rocker Sammy Hagar before leaving in 2016. Plus, there's his steakhouse, Miller & Lux, which surprisingly has a focus on salad.
Forbes magazine has said that this is the best Caesar salad in America.
Florence credits his wife with the success of many of their businesses. But while Florence loves his various entrepreneurial enterprises, his restaurants are his true pride and joy. He said in an interview with Williams-Sonoma, "All 3 of my restaurants, Wayfair Tavern in San Francisco, El Paseo in Mill Valley, and our fast casual restaurant in Terminal 2 of the San Francisco Airport, are my happy places." From his various TV shows to his own personal travels, Florence has, as he puts it, eaten his way around the world. Still, his heart remains at home. He explained to Williams-Sonoma, "I am a die-hard fan of many different cooking styles, but my cooking style, the style of food that keeps me up at night trying to decode my own ideas, is gorgeous American cooking." Reflecting upon some of the best Southern dishes in his hometown of Greenville, South Carolina, he recalled eating a bacon-wrapped steak at a place called The Peddler, also noting that he has been trying to recreate the ambiance of this restaurant throughout his career. Florence also reflected on the evolution of American cuisine in his interview with Williams-Sonoma. He explained that when he was getting started in the 90s, people didn't take him seriously when he said he cooked American food. Florence lamented that most people assumed that all he cooked would be burgers and fries. But now, he says, American cookery has developed as a rootsy, smart, electric genre of cooking.
We're pioneers over here on this side of town.
While his proudest ventures may be his restaurants, Tyler Florence has many different business ventures under his belt. His savvy entrepreneurship has led him to create baby food, wine, and even cutlery brands. He told Williams-Sonoma, "For me, everything we do has to answer 2 questions. Is it world-class, and is it delicious?" Florence's baby food brand, called Sprout, aims to bring healthy and delicious food to babies with a sense of taste. He wrote on Instagram, "They want and need delicious, healthy food. Starting children on a real, honest, and pure diet of organic, non-GMO fruits and vegetables will give your little ones a head start that will last them a lifetime." Florence also has his own wine. He shared with Forbes that while working his first restaurant job, he was inspired by the passion of the sommelier, saying he had such a story to tell. He knew everything about everything. How he could cram in that much information about a bottle of wine was so fascinating. Tyler Florence has a huge number of businesses and restaurants, but he's still an active host on the Food Network, with shows like the long-running hit series, The Great Food Truck Race. Everything in the Great Food Truck Race happens quickly, and teams must adjust to different locations and situations. The show started when the economy crashed in 2008, and Florence and many chefs realized that a food truck was simply a more feasible business than a brick-and-mortar restaurant. The show turned out to be one of the network's biggest hits, and nearly 15 years after it debuted, it's still going strong. As Tyler Florence has evolved into an established media figure and well-known name in the food space, he's capitalized on his reputation and experience to try out other forms of content creation beyond cooking shows and cookbooks. In 2018, Florence made his feature film directorial debut with Uncrushable. The documentary covers the 17 wildfires that erupted in California over 2 days in October 2017 and examines the disaster's impact on the displaced climate refugees and first responders.
These stories should be told, these stories should be chronicled, and it should be a lesson for all of us.
Florence also broke out of the Food Network box with an independent food platform called Wolf It Down, which offers short clips, recipes, and cooking classes. In 2022, Florence and Wells Adams of The Bachelorette started hosting the show Two Dudes in a Kitchen for broadcasting conglomerate iHeart. The show is a spin on Florence's traditional instructional format in that it's a thrice-weekly, food-themed audio podcast. And in 2023, Florence was among the cast members of the Fox reality show Special Forces World world's toughest. The competition challenged celebrities in military training-style exercises, and on the second day of shooting, Florence took himself out of the running. He claimed it wasn't because the show was too hard, though, but that he only quit because he promised his wife he wouldn't do anything too dangerous.
I don't think I'm breakable, to be honest with you.
David Chang became a superstar chef thanks to his gregarious, TV-friendly personality. But how has he changed from the 26-year-old who opened a restaurant with only $130,000? As a child, Chang golfed competitively. No surprise, considering the fact that his father owned a golf supply store. However, Chang took a big step back from the sport when he was just 13, and later failed to qualify for his high school's golf team. This was a pivotal moment that he only occasionally regrets when watching the Masters golf tournament.
Makes me wish I had never quit golf, which is the only time I've ever said that to myself since I quit golf.
In college, he decided to study religion based on his personal disinterest in his family's Presbyterian faith. For spiritual guidance, he preferred the work of Henry David Thoreau, one of the most prominent transcendentalist thinkers of the 19th century. After graduating, though, Chang still hadn't quite settled on a career path. He tried his hand at some office jobs, but found those unfulfilling as well, which led to his next career move. But it still wasn't cooking. After his stint as an office worker, Chang landed a job teaching English in Japan. He ended up living and working in a small town a little over an hour south of Osaka. It was during his time in Japan that his interest in food began. He began to study what it took to prepare food in a commercial kitchen, doing his best with his limited Japanese language skills to shadow the chefs at a local ramen shop. Ramen was actually a big part of his culinary journey. In typical college student fashion, Chang made instant ramen a staple of his diet. During his junior year of college, he studied abroad in London and frequented a ramen chain called Wagamama, which first gave him the idea that a career in food might be in his future. To follow that dream, though, Chang eventually decided he needed to leave Japan and return to the US to get a formal culinary education. Chang's career pivot went against the advice of his father, who had worked in commercial kitchens himself and didn't care for the experience. Still, Chang returned to the United States and began studying at a school in New York City called the French Culinary Institute. After graduating in the year 2000, when he was about 22 years old, he landed a position as a line cook at prolific restaurateur Jean-Georges Van Richten's upscale French restaurant, the Mercer Kitchen. While still at the Mercer, Chang decided he wanted to work at celebrity chef Tom Colicchio's new venture called Kraft. After that, he transitioned to prep work at another fancy French restaurant under the proprietorship of acclaimed chef Daniel Boulou. While he was still working at Kraft, Chang started to dream of opening his own restaurant, but he felt he still had a lot to learn, so he returned to Japan to perfect the art of noodle making. The basis for his return trip was an opportunity to work in a ramen shop in Tokyo owned by a family friend. After finding out that this particular ramen shop wasn't really all that great, he left it behind for a gig making noodles at a restaurant located in the Park Hyatt Tokyo Hotel. In total, he spent approximately 2 years studying his craft in Japan. His decision to pursue Japanese noodle making rather than remain in the world of fine French dining was inspired by both his appreciation for restaurant culture in Japan as well as a desire to set himself apart from his peers. In 2020, he told NPR, "I think if I was better at cooking compared to my peer group, especially the restaurants I was in, maybe I would have only cooked French food. But so much of how I wound up today was because I didn't fit in, and I had to find my way and get some kind of expertise that no one else had." In 2004, after returning from his 2-year stint in Japan, with $130,000 he borrowed from his dad and some of his dad's friends, Chang opened up his first restaurant, Momofuku Noodle Bar. Since everyone he approached personally turned down the opportunity to own a stake in the business, Chang teamed up with a chef named Joaquin Baca, who responded to an online ad Chang posted looking for a business partner. Momofuku Noodle Bar's menu initially consisted of just a few dishes and resembled something far closer to that of a traditional ramen restaurant than the unique Asian fusion cuisine Chang would come to be associated with. It was a struggle. Chang and Baca had to learn on the fly how to run a business, and the restaurant initially failed to bring in customers. Eventually, the pair decided that, as long as the restaurant was struggling, they might as well have fun with it. It was the creative dishes they started serving after hitting rock bottom that turned their fortunes around and led to Momofuku Noodle Bar becoming a major player in the mid-2000s New York City restaurant scene. Despite Momofuku Noodle Bar's struggles, Chang decided to open a second restaurant in 2006. At first, this new spot revolved mostly around a Korean dish called sam and was appropriately called Momofuku Sambar. Chang's take on the dish meant presenting it in a manner akin to a Chipotle burrito, allowing customers to customize the ingredients and even wrapping it in a non-traditional flour tortilla. While that idea sounds well suited to the restaurant landscape of the 2020s, back in 2006, Sambar struggled to attract customers. Chang opened Sambar with a $1 million bank loan, so the restaurant's failure could have been costly. To save the business, Chang had to adapt by completely retooling the core concept. Key to its big turnaround was opening for late-night service and catering to an audience consisting largely of New York City chefs who had just finished up their shifts. The late-night menu was considerably more upscale and included the large-format Bosam dish that would become a staple of Chang's future restaurants. Chang told The New Yorker that he began struggling with mental health while still a young teenager, saying that this contributed to his failure to make his high school golf team. "I was too much of a head case." The first time Chang visited a psychiatrist was in 2003, just prior to opening Momofuku Noodle Bar. In therapy, he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. He told NPR in 2020 that the first experience he can recount with mania was when he was living in Japan. Then, after he returned from the US, he struggled with depression, reaching his mental health low point when he was with Cafe Bolu. He even attributed the rashness with which he opened Momofuku Noodle Bar to depression. He told NPR, "A 26-year-old with very little experience should never open a restaurant, and that's what happened. If I wasn't depressed, I probably wouldn't name the restaurant as silly-sounding as Momofuku." In that same interview, Chang owned up to treating his employees poorly once he became a restaurateur and described change as a still ongoing process.
At times, do I want to, have a totalitarian state? Yes.
By the time Chang decided to open his third restaurant in 2008, his career had taken off. Food and Wine magazine named him one of the best chefs of 2006. The following year, the James Beard Foundation selected him as its Rising Star Chef of the Year. Bon Appetit and GQ both named him Chef of the Year in 2007, whereas Momofuku Noodle Bar and Sambar were inspired by casual dining in Japan and China. Momofuku Co. required a reservation to sit in its exclusive 12-seat dining room and try its tasting menu. This time around, Chang's ambition paid off right from the start when the restaurant earned 2 Michelin stars in 2009. Momofuku Co.'s success kicked off Chang's ascent from New York City celebrity to international superstar. In 2011, he both opened a Momofuku-branded restaurant in Australia and further expanded his footprint in New York. The following year, he opened a multi-restaurant space in Toronto and continued to expand his empire throughout the decade before changes in the restaurant marketplace led to several closures in the 2020s, including Momofuku Co. Despite the reach of his restaurant empire, most people were first exposed to Chang through TV rather than through his food. In 2010, Chang landed his first recurring TV role in the acclaimed HBO drama Treme. Food plays a major role in Treme, and Chang portrays a fictionalized version of himself in 7 episodes. The same year, he became a regular fixture of Food TV, with appearances on numerous cooking and talk shows. Heck, he even won $1 million for charity on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Your metallic testicles just won you $1 million for your charity.
Chang also became a Netflix star in 2018 as the host of Ugly Delicious. This turned out to be the start of a fruitful partnership. Not only did Ugly Delicious return for a second season, but Chang subsequently hosted Breakfast, Lunch, and Dinner and Dinner Time Live with David Chang for the streaming service. Ultimately, Chang's TV career may well have even more of an impact in establishing his name recognition than his restaurant work. Michelin stars and a multi-series Netflix deal aren't even the full extent of Chang's reach in the culinary world. He's also a celebrated author and publisher. Chang's first cookbook, Momofuku, hit bookstore shelves in 2009 and landed a spot on the New York Times bestseller list. His subsequent cookbook, Cooking at Home, and his 2020 memoir, Eat a Peach, also achieved this honor. And in 2011, Chang and a couple of co-editors published the first issue of Lucky Peach, a magazine that reshaped what food journalism could look like. And his media empire also includes 2 podcasts, The Dave Chang Show and Recipe Club. For what it's worth, The Dave Chang Show is award-winning, like just about everything Chang does. It won the Best Food Podcast Award at the iHeartRadio Podcast Awards in 2020 and was nominated for the same award in 2023. Chang was engaged for the first time in 2013, but he and his then-fiancée broke off their engagement before marrying. It's not a matter of public record precisely when he began seeing his current partner, but he and Grace Seo Chang eloped and were married around 2017. Whereas David Chang seems to thrive on attention, Grace Seo Chang is a private person, so details about her are scarce. Their first son, Hugo, was born in 2019. They had a second child named Gus about 2 years later. David Chang told NPR that cooking for his wife when she was pregnant for the first time changed his relationship to preparing food. "I had never been in a position where I'm trying to generally feed someone else with love, and I just want to nurture them, and cooking for my wife was the best."
I texted Dave one day and I told him the first meal I want once this baby's out is sushi. Good sushi if we can.
Cooking for his children changed his conception of food further still, as he attributes cooking for his family with awakening new insights. I care more about serving a bowl of soup that looks like just plain old soup, but made with love. As David Chang's reach grew, Momofuku became not just the name of a few restaurants, but a brand that covered a range of business endeavors. In 2019, Chang appointed Marguerite Zabar Mariscal, who worked her way up from a Momofuku internship, as the company's CEO. Then, in 2023, a series of Momofuku restaurant closures, in conjunction with the success of the brand's prepackaged goods and a burgeoning Majordomo media brand, resulted in non-restaurant income becoming a key part of Momofuku's balance sheet. Momofuku, in its new corporate state, became the center of a controversy in April 2024, when the brand attempted to enforce its trademark of the phrases Chili Crunch and Chili Crunch. Chang quickly backtracked in response to public backlash and issued an apology.